We want to believe there's a reason for everything. That everything that happens in our world, no matter how bizarre or how baffling, can be explained. But sometimes things happen that seem to defy logic. A surfer was attacked by a great white shark. Incredibly, he survived thanks to the intervention of dolphins. Did they intentionally risk their lives to save a human's? Is it possible to smell death? Across America, domestic pets have acted as prophets of doom, accurately predicting when someone will die. Can people move from the present into the past or future? Eyewitnesses reported a woman materializing from thin air. Was she a time traveler? A Missouri teen found the strength to lift a car off his trapped uncle. Do humans have hidden reserves of superhuman power? Can hard science and driven investigators discover the truth? Or is the best we can do to ask, is it weird or what? In California, a mysterious woman appeared in a room seemingly out of thin air. Did she travel from another time?
It might be possible to build a gateway to another universe.
We always knew you could travel back in time.
Meanwhile, in Switzerland, scientists attempt an ambitious experiment that seems more science fiction than real science.
The Large Hadron Collider could change the course of modern science.
Does it reveal secrets that may make time travel actually possible? Or is it weird? Or what? On July the 15th, 2006, famed American science fiction author Whitley Strieber was out at the theater with his wife Anne and her friend Starfire Tor. Little did they know that upcoming events would rival anything found in Whitley's books.
Nothing seems impossible to me anymore. I haven't talked about it very much.
After dinner, Anne and her friend went into what they thought was an empty ladies' room.
Well, it's a very small room, about 10 by 12. There was nobody in that room except for Anne Strieber and myself.
So I was standing on these steps. No one went in it after the two of them went in it. And I was watching the entire time.
Anne was a little bit before me, and she left and said she would wait for me outside.
So I went outside, stood in front of the door, waiting for Starfire.
As I slightly rounded the corner, coming out of the stall, a woman just materialized. Whoa! She didn't seem to understand where she was. She seemed confused, and then she just left the room.
While I was standing there, a woman came out.
I go out the door to the ladies' room, and Anne Strieber rushes up to me, very, very excited. She says, "A lady came out, but she didn't go in. A lady came out, but she didn't go in."
This was pretty amazing because we knew no one was in there when we went in.
No one, absolutely no one, went in that bathroom.
Who was this mysterious woman? And how could she have appeared from nowhere? For the eyewitnesses, this wasn't a ghost story. For them, the answer was much more bizarre.
Something altered the timelines. We were brought together like a bad edit of a film, and that's how we almost collided.
If the woman was real, how did she enter the room unseen? Could time travel be possible? Remarkably, evidence that proves this theory could lie in a 27-kilometer tunnel underground on the border of France and Switzerland. This is the Large Hadron Collider, a particle accelerator capable of recreating conditions that last existed when the universe was less than 1/1,000,000th of a second old. Here, thousands of bright minds work on some of the most fundamental unanswered questions of the universe: the deep structure of space and time, the intersection of quantum mechanics and general relativity. The knowledge obtained could eventually lead to the creation of a time machine.
This is what Einstein's dream was. with the Large Hadron Collider, perhaps one day we'll be able to answer these cosmic questions. What happened before the Big Bang? Is it possible to go through a black hole? Can you bend time into a pretzel?
Can time be manipulated? To find out, time itself needs to be investigated. Some physicists have described time as a river, constantly flowing in one direction.
Now we look at a river and we think of the spot on the river where we are is something like the present moment. And then upstream from us is the future. This is coming towards us. It's relentless. It's sort of inevitable. In a moment, what was up there is going to be here. And downstream from us, we can think of as the past. So these are events that have already happened. So there you have it. You've got the future, you've got the present moment, you've got the past.
Is it possible to go against the flow of time into the future? Or move faster downstream into the past?
So we always knew that if you could travel faster than the speed of light, you could travel back in time.
Albert Einstein determined that light travels at constant speed throughout the universe, almost 300,000 kilometers a second. It's so fast, it can travel from the sun to the Earth in just 8 minutes. When traveling near or faster than the speed of light, time becomes warped, making time travel theoretically possible.
But Einstein showed in his special theory of relativity that you can't build a spaceship that goes faster than the speed of light. You get closer and closer and closer to it, but you never quite get there.
But modern quantum physicists have built on Einstein's theories. They believe there's a way you can beat light to a destination, by cheating. By bending the fabric of space and connecting two distant points, a time traveler could create a shortcut. This theoretical tunnel through space and time is known as a wormhole.
Think of Alice in Wonderland. She had a looking glass and she put her hand through it and her hand went to the other side of forever. That is a wormhole.
Could we manipulate the very fabric of time and space?
If we have something called negative matter or negative energy, it might be possible to build a gateway to another universe, a gateway to another point in space or time. Now, of course, in science fiction, we have the dilithium crystals of Star Trek. People talk about spice. People talk about other exotic chemicals that will open these gateways. Well, I'm a physicist. To us, it's negative matter or negative energy. Negative energy we can actually create in the laboratory. That's already been done, but only in microscopic quantities. Negative matter we've never seen before. If we can find a negative matter meteorite in outer space, just perhaps, maybe we can harness it to open a gateway to another universe.
The only problem is that the amount of energy required to punch a hole to the other side of the universe is impossible for us to achieve with our current technology.
We're talking about the energy of a black hole, the energy of a star, in order to bend time into a pretzel.
Can we travel in time? Physicists believe traveling to the future is not only possible, but relatively easy.
How do you exploit Einstein's theory of relativity to travel into the future? Well, it turns out it's not that hard to do. Now, it's hard from an engineering point of view. You just need a really fast spaceship, which we don't have. But if you had one, here's what you do. You just go on a long journey and come back home.
Remarkably, this is possible because time behaves differently when an object or person travels at high velocities. It's called time dilation.
If you move fast enough, your clock will disagree from a clock that's been left at home. A similar thing can happen if you spend a lot of time in a strong gravitational field, like near a black hole, for example.
This amazing feat has actually already been accomplished. Russian cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev has spent more time in space than any other human being. From 1988 to 2005, Krikalev spent 803 days orbiting the Earth at high speed. At times, Krikalev was traveling at over 27,000 kilometers per hour, nowhere near the speed of light, but fast enough to travel forward in time.
It's only about 1/50th of a second, so it's almost too small to even notice. But he has aged just a little bit less than, let's say, if he had had a twin brother who had stayed on the ground. He's just a little bit younger than his brother would have been.
Using this theory, it may be possible to travel thousands of years into the future.
Imagine traveling all the way around the circumference of the Milky Way galaxy, our galaxy. Now, it's very big. It's about 150,000 light years around. So it's going to take a long time. You start accelerating at a rate of 1g, which is the normal force of gravity that you feel just sitting here. So you have this very mild acceleration, but you keep it up long enough, you're eventually going very fast. When you get halfway around, you start decelerating, and after many, many more years, you end up back on Earth where you started from. Here's the thing. To someone who has stayed at home and just watched you go and is waiting for your return, they have a long wait because it's going to take 150,000 years before you come back. But for you, from your point of view, on board this spaceship, only 23 years will have passed.
Although it seems impossible, the Large Hadron Collider could yet witness science fiction become science fact. It may not be a time machine, as some conspiracy theorists argue, but physicists believe this project could be the first small step in eventually creating the elusive wormhole.
There's a speculative idea that they may be able to make a mini black hole in the Large Hadron Collider.
So, was the mystery figure who appeared that night in Los Angeles really a time traveler? Perhaps only time will tell.
So one day, if somebody knocks on your door and claims to be your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter, don't slam the door.
Weird, or what? Monterey Bay, California. A surfer experienced something so horrible, it can only be described as a living nightmare. A shark attack.
That's one thing that you wish, your whole life that you never see, ever.
But moments from death, he's saved by dolphins. Is it possible dolphins will risk their own lives to save a human's? On August the 28th, 2007, surfers Todd Indris and Zane Hawley decided to catch some waves.
I really felt that it was just a nice day and that we were going to get good waves.
We paddled out together, and it was just me and Todd, and we were kind of laughing.
We were out in the water for probably about 45 minutes.
Then, seemingly out of nowhere, a 4.5-meter great white shark attacked Todd, biting into his flesh.
When I heard this blood-curdling scream, and just all this blood kind of just squirting up and down.
And it fit me in its mouth and shook me. I was literally with my back hanging off my body. And it bent my right knee backwards and swallowed my leg into its mouth. So I was losing massive quantities of blood. I was just completely frantic and out of my mind, scared.
But miraculously, something came to his rescue. A nearby pod of bottlenose dolphins intervened, attacking the giant creature.
When I saw the dolphins kind of just freaking out in a frenzy and kind of pushing the shark away with their beaks.
Tail slapping the water, trying to keep the thing from coming back for a third, a kill bite.
The dolphins drove away the shark, but Todd was badly injured.
And then, like it was sent from God, a wave came that was just a perfect little wave that was breaking right where we were. And I don't even know how I had the energy or the stamina or whatever it is to get into that wave, but I actually caught the wave. Within 10 or 12 seconds, I was washing up onto dry sand, and everything around me, all the foam, was just bright red.
We all kind of patted him like, Todd, you're gonna be all right, you're gonna be all right. But I was thinking like, I don't think he's gonna be all right. I thought he was I thought he was done.
Todd was rushed to hospital. It took 500 stitches and 200 staples to close his wounds. Amazingly, he survived.
I don't think I was meant to die. I think that somebody, a higher power, was looking out for me and really potentially sent these dolphins or intended for them to be in the right place at the right time and save me.
So a surfer was saved from the jaws of death by dolphins. But did these playful mammals really risk their lives to protect him? For over 2,000 years, dolphins have been known as wise guardians of the sea, protecting sailors and guiding ships to land. Today, some scientists believe that after humans, dolphins are the Earth's most intelligent animals and should be classified as non-human persons. But is it possible that these remarkable animals actually help humans on purpose? Diana Reese has been studying dolphins for almost 30 years.
Why would they do this? Why would they risk staying in an area where there's sharks? Why would they risk coming to the aid of a person? It's not a relative, it's not even one of their own species. Why would they do this?
Diana's research shows that dolphins are intelligent and unique creatures that possess human-like qualities. Could these qualities be the reason they came to Todd's rescue?
Here we're showing this ability of dolphins for mirror self-recognition.
For animals, the ability to recognize itself is rare and confirmed in only a few species, including elephants, chimps, and magpies. Dr. Reese has designed an experiment to test if dolphins also have this skill.
In humans, mirror self-recognition emerges at about 18 to 24 months of age. And at that time, at least in human children, that's when the first signs of empathy start emerging. And now we're marking one of the dolphins. We mark them with a non-toxic marker, and he immediately swims to the mirror, which is right over here. He's been marked on his head, and it's now looking at this part of its head that's marked. And this is really unusual behavior for a dolphin. This dolphin's looking at the mark. Now, to see more of his body, he has to back away from the mirror. We understand that as well. And you can see him now. He's going to look in the mirror. He's spinning, and this is not a trained behavior. This is something he came up with himself. You see him looking and spinning. He looks and spins. This is an animal that knows he's looking at himself.
The ability to recognize themselves means that dolphins are possibly self-aware, like humans. It also means they could be capable of human-like emotions, including empathy.
I think these animals are capable of this kind of empathy. I think they're capable of understanding the plight of another, and I think they're capable of doing this behavior intentionally.
Does a desire to help others in need explain why dolphins intervened when Todd was being attacked by a great white shark? Thomas A. Jefferson is a researcher at the Southwest Fisheries Science Center in San Diego. He believes dolphins are far from the lovable creatures we perceive them to be. Is it possible that the dolphins' actions were driven by a more sinister emotion?
The image of dolphins as the happy-go-lucky playboys of the sea is not really very accurate.
There are multiple reports of dolphins having injured or even killed people. In 1994, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a seemingly friendly bottlenose dolphin rammed and killed a drunken man who tried to thrust a stick into its blowhole. Jefferson also witnessed another incident and captured it on video. For no apparent reason, a school of dolphins killed a porpoise.
And we were doing research on bottlenose dolphins in Monterey Bay, and we came across a small group of dolphins that were behaving kind of unusually. A group of 3 dolphins out of a larger group of about a dozen or so were sort of corralling the porpoise and kind of pushing it underwater and very clearly hurting it so that it wouldn't be able to escape and move further offshore. And they eventually lunged on top of it and attacked it and behaved very aggressively and eventually actually killed the porpoise.
Jefferson believes the killer dolphins were sexually frustrated young males who, denied access to females in the pod, decided to vent their frustration on the innocent porpoise in an act of violence. Could this capacity for violence explain why dolphins attacked the great white shark and saved Todd? Surfer Todd Indris was attacked by a great white shark. But moments from death, he was apparently saved by a school of bottlenose dolphins. Todd believes they risked their lives to protect him in an act of human-like empathy. But is this really what happened? Dr. Daniela Maldini is the founder of Okeanis, a dolphin research group that had a boat out on the water when Todd was attacked. She believes there's a more logical explanation.
On August 28, 2007, our boat was out in the bay to find dolphins and follow them and do our normal routine survey, taking pictures of the animals to assess what was going on that day.
Their observations revealed there were young among the dolphin pod. Maldini believes that to protect their young, the dolphins attacked the great white shark.
The shark would have been a danger to their calves. Sharks are natural predators of dolphins, and so you would imagine that they would have reacted that way whether Todd was there or not.
But Todd will always believe the dolphins saved him out of compassion.
The dolphins were actually going out of their way to protect me. That is absolutely without a doubt what happened. They formed like a protective wall between me and the shark, and it was a conscious decision.
Whether a conscious act by creatures that cared about Todd's survival, or simply instinctual behavior by wild animals, this remarkable story seems destined to remain weird, or what? Since ancient times, folklore has linked cats with black magic. In the Middle Ages, they were feared as harbingers of plague. Dogs too have often been viewed as prophets of death. Are these more than superstitions? Could our domestic pets really possess such powers? Can cats and dogs sense impending death? Canton, Ohio. At the Pines nursing home, something mysterious seems to be going on. Something that seemingly defies logic. The nursing home's pet dog, Scamp, seems to have powers. A sixth sense chaplain Beth Neerman has witnessed.
I had come to see one patient who was dying. Scamp came up to me and he was just barking, and he does not do that normally. I said, "What's the matter, Scamp?" And he just turned around and he walked straight to that patient's room. I was just dumbfounded.
Head nurse Adeline Baker was also shocked when she experienced Scamp's seeming ability to predict impending death.
We found him at a bedside of some lady who was actively dying, and he was just sitting there standing guard. It took a few more times of things that happened like that for us to realize that maybe there was something going on here.
Providence, Rhode Island. At the Steer House Nursing Center, Oscar, a cat, also seems to possess a strange ability to sense the oncoming death of elderly patients.
We started to hear inklings of him sitting with patients as they were dying. And I think initially we were all fairly skeptical. It started to be almost a marker for us that a patient might be nearing the end of their life.
Like Scamp the dog, Oscar's uncanny sense didn't seem to be a coincidence.
Oscar's been remarkably consistent. There was a period of time a year or two ago where he made every death that occurred here on the unit.
Scamp has been right about 40 times or more. I used to keep count of it, but I just sort of, after a while, was like, okay, that's pretty much enough.
There is no Stephen King-like feeling here on the ward, the idea that this cat is predicting death. The patient families have been remarkably supportive of Oscar and, in fact, invite him in.
Actually, the residents and the families, they like him a lot. They love him. He's a comfort.
In the 21st century, how can we explain something that seems like medieval magic? Do cats and dogs have some kind of mystical sixth sense? Could cats and dogs have supernatural powers? Or can the answer be found in straightforward science? Dr. Alexandra Horowitz is an expert on animal behavior and cognition.
When we awaken, we see the world. When dogs awaken, they smell the world.
With over 220 million smell-sensitive receptors in their noses, a dog's sense of smell is one of the most powerful, over 40 times more than humans.
I hold up a rose. To me, it's just a single item. To the dog, it is an item identified by the people who have handled it and have left their scent on it. Smells move through time. They mark how recently someone has visited a spot. Strong odors are recent, weak odors are more distant. Broken leaf might emit a scent. The scent of insects that have visited the rose and traveled from other places bringing their scents.
Do dogs' super-sensitive noses allow them to smell the inner processes of the human body? Cutting-edge medical research suggests so. Researchers in California have successfully trained dogs to recognize odors on the breath of lung and breast cancer patients. The human body also gives off odors when it's dying.
When someone is near death or as their bodies ultimately deteriorate, there are certain odors that are emitted, from the change in the concentration of acid in the fluid in the body to cells actually dying, to a bacteria which is taking over the body and it itself emits a scent. So there might be some timed smells associated with near death, with death, and with certainly after death, as we, even with our blunt noses, would eventually realize.
Beyond a heightened sense of smell, dogs, cats, and some other mammals have an extra sixth sense in the form of a tiny organ called the vomeronasal. This organ, which has not been found in humans, is acutely attuned to pheromone activity, chemical messages that pass from one animal to another.
It's absolutely possible that when we're dying, we give off hormones, cortisol, stress hormone, or adrenaline as the body starts to ready itself or to resist death, that are detectable by the dog through his vomeronasal organ.
It is certainly conceivable that that is what Oscar is picking up on, whether it's a pheromone or chemical that is released as patients are in the process of dying.
But does an incredible ability to pick up scent explain how Oscar the cat and Scamp the dog are able to sense the death of a human being? Perhaps the answer is more mysterious. Could we be communicating with animals psychically? In Toronto, Canada, a dog called Boston has been trained to respond to the epileptic seizures of his handler, Andy Brooks. But something weird's been happening. It seems Boston has developed the ability to sense Andy's seizures 5 to 10 minutes before they happen.
Boston would, detect these seizures by, whining and crying. And I'll be like, you know what, there's nothing wrong, Boston. I think you're just, losing your apples.
Each time neurologists tested Andy for the kind of brain activity that normally precedes a seizure, they confirmed Boston's diagnosis.
We checked by the doctor, and the doctor's like, yeah, you know what, I trust this dog with more than anything. So they got me hooked up and all that and found out, yeah, I'm having seizures. He's detecting them before they happen.
Many dismiss the idea that a dog can detect subtle changes in the electrical activity of the human brain through smell. So what can explain Boston's bizarre predictions? Ian Ashworth is a dog trainer and program director for Dog Guides Canada. He believes that dogs' power of perception goes way beyond simple scent.
we do find that some of our dogs do actually start detecting seizures. And it's something that we don't train for because as yet there's no real clear idea of what they're detecting. My own suspicion is that they are picking up in some subtle change in body language. Dogs are great readers of people's body language, and they can really tune into different moods and things that are going to happen. And so what we do is, you know, if our clients notice that happening, then they do start to encourage it, just as they encourage any other area of the training. And anecdotally, we've had dogs that have detected seizures like 30, 45 minutes before it actually happens, which is amazing, and it's a huge, huge bonus, really, for our client who initially gets this dog as a companion and to respond to their seizures, and then they suddenly find that it is actually giving them warning.
The best guesses, I think, are that they're detecting a slight change in behavior, which as humans we become accustomed to. Even around an epileptic, we can become accustomed to someone who periodically has a seizure, surprisingly enough, even though the first time it happens is dramatic. Every subsequent time it happens, we're a little more accustomed to it.
It's estimated that more than 60% of human communication occurs through body language. We are often unaware of this subconscious dialogue, but dogs are highly attuned to these cues.
We could have animals telling us information about ourselves all the time. A dog sniffs something on your leg, you don't notice it. It doesn't seem like a communication to you. But it might be that the dog is noticing something of information, and we just haven't picked on the fact that they're trying to tell us something. It's interesting because in that case, you don't need to have the dog intending to tell us something about our leg or intending to tell the person something about epilepsy, but they notice it, and we respond.
But logic and hard science seem to provide only some of the answers to this remarkable mystery. How animals seemingly possess the power to foresee a person's final moments. Could the truth be found in a darker place? Witches have long been known for their relationships with cats they call familiars, or spirit companions. Laurie Cabot is the official witch of Salem, Massachusetts. The prophecies of Oscar the cat were of no surprise to her.
He certainly is top of the line familiar. All cats have an ability the same ability that humans have for becoming a psychic.
Can cats read our minds? Cabot believes so, but only if our brainwaves align. Human brainwave activity is categorized into distinct patterns, including delta, theta, alpha, and beta. Beta waves are associated with the alert mind, while delta waves occur during deep sleep. But alpha waves occur when we are relaxed and settled, not asleep, but not actively thinking. It's in this dreamlike alpha state where Cabot believes we have the psychic potential to communicate with cats.
I think that Oscar is doing what every cat can do. He's picking up the information from their aura and their energy. And I think those people are very fortunate, really, to have him walk with them into the other world.
Is it weird or what? St. Louis, Missouri, 2005. 49-year-old Jim McLean was under his El Camino replacing a starter motor when the jack holding the car broke.
Took the old starter out, putting the new starter in, and I gave it one last crank. And I seen it come out, it was coming down. Then it just collapsed right on my chest.
Trapped under the car, Jim received several broken ribs. But worse, with his lungs compressed, he could barely breathe.
Then I yelled one time, help! And when I yelled help, it just crushed me more. I was dying. I mean, I knew I was dying. And I'm going, God, don't let me die like this.
Jim's scream was heard by his nephew, Jack McLean, then just 14 years old.
I heard someone yelling help. Then as soon as I saw that it was coming from my uncle who was under the car,
then that's when I freaked out.
Jack realized his Uncle Jim was close to death. But what he didn't realize was the crisis was making his body go through an incredible transformation.
It was the weirdest feeling. I've never had any feeling like I had when I had heard that. I felt sick, and I ran over there, and that's when I started lifting.
With just seconds to spare, Jack attempted the impossible, to lift the 450-kilo weight off his dying uncle.
I treated this car as if it weighed 10 pounds. That it had to go up, and he had to get air. I just grabbed right here under this bumper, started pulling. It's a weird feeling, you know, that every inch you go, you can't stop.
I was begging him. I mean, really, I wasn't begging him.
Bit by bit, Jack lifted the car off his uncle's crushed chest.
You have to keep going. You have to find something. You'll use your toe muscles, anything you can find. And I just had to keep going. I couldn't stop.
Remarkably, Jack found the strength to hold the car just long enough for his uncle to struggle free.
That's what saved me. When the paramedics got here, they said another 10 seconds, I've been dead. He didn't have that strength just to lift that frame up a little bit. I'd be dead.
It's probably one of the best days I've ever felt, you know, that I saved my uncle. And it's just something I will never forget.
It's weird, but true. In a moment of life-threatening danger, a 14-year-old saved a life by lifting the equivalent raw deadlift world record of 426 kilos. But how could this have happened? Is there something special about Jack McLean? David Sandler is a sports performance expert with over 20 years of experience training pro athletes. Today, he's putting Jack McLean through his paces in search of answers.
I meet some of the best athletes in the world, but none of them saved anybody's life. Jack McLean, 14 years old, 110 pounds, just this tiny guy in a total panic situation, lifting a 3,500-pound car, which is probably over 1,000 pounds at the engine. I mean, just an incredible feat of strength.
Remarkably, this feat of super strength is something we're all capable of. In everyday life, it's estimated we only use 65% of our muscles' full capacity. This gives us good motor control and the ability to do delicate tasks. It also makes us incredibly good at tasks requiring endurance. But what about the other 35%? Sandler's theory is this extra power can be summoned by unleashing an explosive phenomenon he calls hysterical strength.
Hysterical strength is basically the ability to call on every muscle in your body to help do some task when you're really in a lot of trouble. You've got maximal muscle recruitment and you create an unbelievable amount of power and force and overcome the impossible.
But how? Within seconds of sensing danger, our brain signals the body to switch into an emergency state known as fight or flight. Adrenal glands begin pumping hormones designed to kick vital organs into action. Our pupils dilate, the heart races, blood pressure skyrockets, the liver releases glucose for quick fuel. Breathing speeds up, infusing the body with oxygen while blood is diverted away from the skin into the muscles. In preparation for a massive injection of emergency hysterical strength, fear has transformed the body.
Fear forces you to recruit muscle, fear forces you to produce force, and fear forces you to fight.
To test the hysterical strength theory, Sandler has devised an experiment using biofeedback software.
Over this way, we have rigged a bench press device to help us gather some information.
Jack has no idea what Sandler has planned. He's going to surprise Jack by dropping a lethal amount of weight on his chest. Will Jack McLean be able to access his super strength again? Meanwhile, survival expert Lawrence Gonzalez is studying chimpanzees to back up a theory that might explain this weird phenomenon. To him, a hormone-fueled psychological response is just part of the answer. The real explanation for such feats of strength lies in how our brain rationalizes the extreme.
As if someone you love is pinned under a car, You might rush out and lift the car up without stopping to think that you can't lift a car. And the stopping to think is the key to this, because if you stop to think, you aren't that strong.
Thinking involves an area of the brain called the neocortex. This covers the outer layer of our brain and plays a critical role in controlling consciousness, language, reason, and logic. Key characteristics that make us human. But according to Gonzalez, the neocortex also acts like an automobile governor, causing us to think twice, keeping our primal emotions in check. Overthinking makes us weaker, unable to reach our full strength potential. Gonzalez believes his theory is demonstrated by the physical prowess of chimps.
That is, the mechanics of their joints, the makeup of their muscles, their chemistry, all of that is pretty much the same as ours. They're simply able to take full advantage of it all the time.
Even an average chimpanzee can lift more and jump higher than an elite human athlete. Gonzalez believes this is because chimps have a smaller and less developed neocortex. So, unlike humans, the emotional instincts of chimps are less restrained. They can act without thinking and can summon 100% of their muscle capacity in everyday moments. So, did Jack McLean manage to avoid thinking and override his neocortex?
I had no choice. I had to use everything I had. If I didn't, he would have died. You know, I never thought about how heavy the car was. I had to do it. So it wasn't an option. I didn't even waste time to think about, can I do it? I had to do it.
Back in the gym, David Sandler's about to test his theory that hysterical strength, a biological response triggered by fear, is what powered Jack's heroic moment.
Getting different readings, Jen? Everything's good?
Jack thinks he's doing bench presses so Sandler can collect data on how his muscles operate in normal conditions. In fact, Sandler's preparing a controlled accident he hopes will terrify Jack's body into action.
I'm ready to go. Oh!
Jack appears unfazed. But did the stunt provoke hysterical strength from his muscles?
Are we okay? You sure?
When the weight started falling, I just figured it was gonna fall on me. So I tried to stop it, and then my heart started beating as that fell, so it was kind of scary at first.
But will the fear show up in the data?
You basically shot up to 150, almost 160 beats. 70 beats instantly. With your breathing rate, that jumped up considerably. You hit a 27 breaths per minute, like almost instantly. So again, bam, holy jumping, adrenaline dump, heart rate jump, breathing rate jump. So that's kind of cool. But what's really cool is the muscle activity. So here you are sort of moving along, all right? It's your muscles and you're kind of getting ready and going through. Now watch what happens to your muscle signal as we drop the weight. Oh, there it is. Yeah, see that? Yeah. Yes. Wow. So what happens is when you try to stop it, see how much more muscle activity occurs, okay? So as we're kind of doing this, you're sort of going up and down, we're getting a muscle reading. That was what you were seeing before. We drop the weight, you panic. Yeah. You fire everything you got to try to stop it.
The experiment shown how a shock event can trigger a fear response, calling dormant muscle strength into action. But does it explain how a teenager weighing just 50 kilos managed to lift a full-sized car off his trapped uncle? Or is it weird, or what?